Let me turn this on. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to March the 28th. Today marks 1/3 of this board's tenure is behind us, which means we've got 8 more months to go and a lot to accomplish. Or we could decide to kick everything down the road to the 2025 board. The only problem with that, 80% of us are still setting up here next year. So we got a lot to do. Please remember to silence your phones. And for those of you on live stream, you can do whatever you'd like with your phones, as long as the speaker is off on your laptop. But welcome. We're certainly glad to have the people here, the ones on live stream, as well as the people that will view us perhaps at midnight on YouTube. Before we get into our agenda, I would like to make some opening comments. As you recall, one of our board goals this year is improving board communication. Without reviewing all of the goals again, you can view them all by watching February 29th meeting. There is one goal I would like to specifically address today. We are working on a board communication tool, as we shared with you. It will be a tool where the board communicates board stuff, projects that are going on, various things that may be of interest to the community as spoken from the board. That is a separate communication from Big Canoe Living, which is all about fun and activities. I'm not saying board stuff's not fun, but ours will be strictly board-related stuff. The great news is that board communication tool is in design and it is looking really good, thanks to Mark and Delane and a couple of others. But it's not ready today. So guess who your board communication tool will be today? Me. I'm going to be the verbal board communication tool. All of the comments that I'm getting ready to share with you are supported and contributed by 100% of the people up here. 100%. I just happen to be the one to deliver the message. First, I would like to address some points of view that have been published online concerning Big Canoe's finances and a few other matters. Individuals may have differing opinions, which is okay. Different opinions are okay, but they're just opinions. Bill Thurber, property owner, Audit and Finance Committee Chair, has asked for some time on today's agenda to address some of what you perhaps have read following what Jane and Scott covers. We also want to mention that this board knows, not feels, but knows we have a very competent financial team. Jane and her team they do an awesome job. We're a $54 million balance sheet, almost a $20 million operating budget, and we are a complex business. But they do an amazing job keeping our books straight, as is audited every year, by the way. But Bill will share a little bit more detail in just a few minutes on that. There is so much right about who we are as a team. There's so much right about the time and effort that people put into the job that they do, whether it be volunteers or whether it be staff. People really care about what they do in a really big way. I have personally seen that. We also want to address, in general terms, some various postings, blogging, and writings by a few people that include inflammatory name-calling and mockery about some of our staff, particularly our general manager. For those of you not aware, in a recent article, our employee, our general manager, was called a liar, plus a few other derogatory comments that I choose not to repeat. Some people may not like the message we deliver. They may not like the timing that we deliver or how we deliver. but we're sharing facts, not opinions. Also, as everybody knows, everyone up here is invested in our community. We pay the same dues. Scott pays the same dues as anybody else. And contrary to what has been written in the past, we've paid the same amount of money for a meal down the hall. And if you were to see my POA statement, you'd go, holy cow, you don't get a discount kind of thing. I guess, Jane, you're going to send me my statement in the next couple of days, huh? No one up here is intentionally lying. No one. What benefit would occur by that happening? We may, however, unintentionally misstate something. I know I have, and I'll do it many more times. We may mention a wrong date. We may forget a specific point or just make a human error. But there is no intent to mislead or misstate a known fact. We all can have differing opinions or perspectives, and in fact, that is very healthy. But let's be professional and stop the name calling. When such things are written about our general manager or anyone on our staff that are so visceral, it is a reflection on everyone if we remain silent. One of the first steps in addressing that today is we are publicly and professionally asking that to please stop. Not the different opinions, but the name calling, the untruths, the misleading information. You as property owners voted to place your trust and confidence in each of us up here when you voted to elect us because you had confidence in our commitment to work diligently on behalf of you, and we will continue to do that, I assure you. Likewise, this board places its trust and confidence in its executive staff members, who also work diligently and tirelessly side by side with us for the benefit of everyone in Big Canoe. We welcome all questions, we welcome all comments, and we welcome scrutiny. However, we do not condone false accusations, personal attacks against anyone, especially our staff, and we hope those will come to an end. There are no plans for this board to publicly address this again in the future. Thank you for listening. Mike's grabbing his mic.
Terry, if I could add a couple of comments on top of that, just to piggyback on what you just said to the community, Big Canoe Company has a high level of trust in Scott as well. And the last couple of years, even though we don't agree with everything that Scott says or does as it implies to Big Canoe Company, we see his diligence to protect the community at large. And we often talk about Scott as wrestling an octopus, and that octopus has many tentacles. One side of that tentacle is a city manager, one side is an operations manager, one side is an amenity manager. I don't know if the community truly knows the depth that Scott gives himself to this community. And I just want to take a second to say, Big Canoe Company supports Scott and what you do. And even though we don't agree all the time, we see your diligence and we appreciate it. Let's not run this guy off. Let's keep him around for a while. So let's keep him here.
Thanks for your comments. Well, let's get down to the agenda. All right. Speaking of our general manager, why don't I turn it over to you, Scott? It's all yours.
Thank you, Terry. Happy Easter almost to everybody. Go ahead. Let's do the first slide. Who is that guy up there, by the way, with the dog? Yeah. Are you adopting that dog?
No.
You're not.
No.
No, no, I'm not. All right. Go ahead then. Next slide. I'm gonna, it's pretty exciting, first of all. We've talked about Renew Big Canoe for a long time, and you're gonna be seeing a lot more about what we're doing about Renew Big Canoe in the next couple months. But right now, we're moving a bunch of dirt, and that's pretty cool out on Choctaw. So I asked Lydell Mack to walk us through some pictures from Choctaw, and in his incredibly smart, talented way, explain to you guys what's actually happening out there. So go ahead, Lydell.
Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm Lydell Mack, Director of Operations. As Scott mentioned, the Choctaw 9-hole renovation has begun. Sanders Golf is the contractor that we're partnering with again, the same group that did the Creek 9 renovation back in 2021. The sequencing is going to be a little different this time around because of our desire to keep the driving range accessible and the practice putting green in use for the member guests during the first week of June. They're going to work in reverse order and finish in that section. So they've begun on number 8 and they're working their way down 8 and 7 and a little bit of 6 right now with some demolition work. The irrigation installation will start the week after next on those holes, but right now they're working on removing the old grass off the tees and green surrounds, shelling out the old greens complexes to remove the old drainage from beneath them, and ripping out all the old corrugated metal pipe that is rotting away in the ground and replacing it with plastic, which should last for many, many, many years. So there's just a few pictures to show. They're really in the beginning phases, so there's not a lot yet. I don't know if everyone can see these clearly enough, but the image on the top left is demoing the fairway bunker on the left side of number 8 fairway. The middle top image is what they call a laser level. That is a tractor that is planing out a new tee surface on number 7. The large pile of sand that you see in front of the tractor there, that's actually the old greens mix from 7 Green. So we're reusing the old greens mix, which is predominantly sand, and using that as material to level, enlarge, and what we call sand capping those tee boxes. So all of them will have a 4-inch layer of pretty clean sand right beneath the sod, which helps with drainage for all the new tee boxes. The top right shows trench going in. You can see the new pipe comes out at the very end, the bottom of that trench, running pretty much the length of the 8th fairway up to that fairway bunker. So that's all new. The bottom left image is the 8th green. I apologize for so much of it being in shade. There's not much to see there other than some grass stripping has taken place. And the new green and bunker on that hole is being rough shaped in that image. And the bottom right is another image of some drainage going in. So you can see there, all of the catch basins and the risers are plastic pipe as well, going down to the new plastic pipe beneath the fairways. So we're excited. It's going pretty quickly, honestly. Considering they just started, the fact that they're already through most of 8 and 7 already is pretty good progress. So we'll be really excited when the irrigation starts week after next. We'll be laying sod and turning new sprinkler heads on to grow it in shortly. So I'm going to be around after the meeting if anyone has specific questions about what they're doing or what they can expect to see out there. So hit me up afterwards. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Thank you for your time.
We promised Rich McLeod that's going to lower his handicap by, I don't know, at least 2 or 3. Isn't that what we said? I think so. Yeah, it's good. Very nice. Thanks, Lydell. Go ahead, next slide. This is really important and really exciting. We have been working a lot. I probably talk to the architects at least once every other day now, several times a day sometimes. And we're getting close to being able to have a complete set of construction drawings ready to go out to bid in the May timeframe, which is getting here pretty fast, to at least 3 general contractors. And so we have renderings now that tie to those drawings. And Mark and I got to see them for the first time this week and had a couple comments. And the whole board will see them on Monday. And you guys will see them on the 20th. So that's a really, really important date. Save the date for April 20th. It'll be in here. We'll do 2 different sessions. We'll record it. You'll be able to get us some of your feedback. So April 20th is coming and it's pretty exciting. So stay tuned for the Clubhouse rendering review. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. That is a bunch of leprechauns. Community engagement. Go ahead. So again, this is really kind of amazing, but we're spending a lot of time on the beach club right now and getting ready to open the beach club. I feel like we just closed the beach club, but May 25th is coming. That is opening day. If you were a member last year of Aquatics, just a little reminder, it auto renews on April 30th this year so that you'll have all those great benefits. The clubhouse team under Paul Delgado is doing some really interesting planning for frozen drinks and a much wider selection of food than we were able to do last year at the beach club. So that is coming to a beach club near you this summer. If you're not a member yet, or you have no idea what we're talking about because you just moved into Big Canoe in the last year, you can call Stacy Anthony and she'll walk you through all the benefits of being an Aquatics member. So that is coming pretty quick. Go ahead, next slide. This is also exciting. We're showed you all the stuff happening on our golf course. Not neglecting the racket club either. This is our year to do a clay lift and to resurface all of our clay tennis courts. That'll be going on through April 1st through April 5th, all new fresh clay on those courts. And this is like super, super exciting. This is, we are taking the remaining 2 hard courts, asphalt courts that we have out there, and we are turning them into 6 brand new pickleball courts because our pickleball usage is like skyrocket right now. So the 4 courts we have, they're always in play. So we will have actually 10 really nice, functional, 6 brand new pickleball courts coming in April. So any of you who are like, well, I've always wanted to learn, but you know, I can't get out there, or I'm a little embarrassed because everybody seems to know what they're doing and I don't know what I'm doing. There'll be 6 new places off to the side where you can actually learn the game. And then people are already asking me, why can't we have indoor pickleball? Well, okay, we'll talk about that in the future, but that's the first step. So that's coming. Go ahead, next slide. This is really super fun. So we have been talking about Easter egg hunts since I've been here. I think every single year they've been rained out. And so they end up being in the indoor tennis court, and the Easter egg hunt lasts exactly 53 seconds and it's over. So this year it is going to be gorgeous, beautiful, incredible weekend. We're going to do some really fun things. This is all on the soccer field this year, and the Blonding Swan Coffee and the folks from Southern Creamery that everybody loves. They're going to have all kinds of great treats out there this weekend. And this is all on Saturday, which is 2 days away, from 10:30 to 1. And we're setting it up so there's 4 different age groups. You should all come the whole time. It'll be really fun to watch and all kinds of fun things to eat and drink. But this way, we'll have the 0 to 4 kids will have their own space compared to the teenagers who are on a mission to get every single egg they can possibly find in 56 seconds. So anyhow, we will mix it up a little bit. There'll be some fun prizes too. And go ahead, next slide. Just so you see what our public works guys do when they're not putting up Christmas trees, they are putting up Easter eggs that kind of match my shirt. So that was going on. Out in the field this morning. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful weekend, followed by Easter brunch in here, which is almost totally sold out. I think there was one slot left open. So you can go online and see if that's still open, or you can call Kristen and beg, and maybe she'll let you in. I don't know, but we are very full for Easter brunch. It's going to be a beautiful day, and the clubhouse is going to look fantastic, and the food is going to be really fantastic. So fun weekend. Go ahead. Next slide. Also, because it's getting nice and warm, we're going back to our normal Sunday brunches back at the clubhouse. That looks like an amazing menu. If you're sitting up here right now and you're thinking about salmon Benedict, that sounds really good to me right now. We'll be doing some jazz brunches and things of that nature as well as we get going in the summer. Duffers is also back to its normal 8 to 5, now open 7 days a week. So if you're out Sunday afternoon, you can catch something at Duffers after you play 9 holes, thinking about how your handicap is going to go down after we finish Choctaw. So anyway, doesn't seem to work that way for some reason, by the way. Go ahead. Next slide. Big Canoe census time is almost up. We've had a really great response. The data that we've seen is pretty interesting. We'll share all that with the community coming up in the next few months. It's really, really important to us. It's really important to your amenities directors in terms of planning for the future, looking at our long range plans. What are the next things to do? It's all based on data. So if you haven't gotten that yet, please take a few minutes and do it. If for any reasons you didn't get it in your inbox, it's probably because somewhere along the way I don't know why you would have done this, but you would have hit unsubscribe to POA emails. If you hit unsubscribe, you won't have gotten the census. Let us know. Do ask the POA. We can get that turned around quickly and get you a census if we need to. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. Property sales, beautiful picture of things greening up there. We have done so far year to date, homes and lots are at 38. Homes are exactly where they were in 2019 in terms of sales. It is kind of interesting to look at lots. If you look at the rate we were at through the kind of the middle of, middle 2000s compared to where we are now, we definitely see a bias. Things have jumped up on lot sales. So that's kind of interesting. We have 66 homes on the market, 21 under contract. It's taking about 3 months now is the average time on the market with a list price of $741. The average sold is actually $527. So a little bit more of the lower price homes are moving right now. And the average sold per square foot is at $217, which is a long way from what it's costing to build a new house now, which is well north of probably $260 a square foot. Go ahead, next slide. Safety and security is always pretty important to us. This is for February. 111 calls came into public safety. 32 of those were EMS, 9 fire, and 70 rules. And if you look at the fact that most of those citations were traffic again, wherever Ricky had the traffic monitoring thing, we got some guests this time. We don't usually get quite that mix between residents and guests, but this time 41 residents, 22 guests, almost all of those were traffic citations. So we are adding a second trailer this year so we can move it around a little bit more. Some people have accused me of, putting it in certain strategic places and leaving it there all year. So this will give us the ability to mix it up a little bit. So everybody gets their fair share of trying not to speed. All right, go ahead, next slide. This is really important. We had gotten a blog that was sent out a few weeks ago. If I knew nothing about Pettit Dam, quite honestly, and I had read that blog, I might have been at best confused, at worst, I might have been a little bit alarmed. And there is no need for confusion or alarm. We have a really good handle on what's happening with Pettit Dam. We had a call with Georgia Safe Dams yesterday. And rather than me talking, I thought you might rather hear from Geosyntec. So I asked Wes McDonald. He's the gentleman who has normally come in July and normally comes in December. We'll try to get him maybe once a quarter or once every couple quarters, because we have a lot happening now with Pettit Dam. So Wes, are you on the line there?
I am, Scott. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. I cannot see the slides you have there. I can only see the fire hydrant and the dog, but I will talk through what I have, and you guys can move them along accordingly, I guess.
That dog is still available for adoption according to Terry. So if
Right.
you want to act on that, we can work that out. Its name is Whiskey, by the way.
It's a good
Go
name.
ahead. Anyway, you can, we just,
Yeah, I'll go ahead. The first slide I have there, it starts with 2024 update. What we've done to date so far this year. I guess in the last 3 or 4 months, I talked to the group there in December. We've been having a lot going on. So the interceptor drain project that we had initially submitted last year, we received comments on them from the Safe Dams program, and it was also coupled with a seismic stability package at the time. We ended up splitting that up, and we've resubmitted that earlier this month to Georgia Safe Dams. And
Hey,
hopefully
Wes,
that will.
Wes,
Yes.
1 second, please. We're
Sure.
seeing if, okay. We're going to slow you down for a second.
Oh, perfect.
There we go. Now we are on the 2024 update slide that starts with outline. So go ahead and do that.
Perfect. Yep, that's where I was, just on the first bullet there. So we had split that package up between the drain replacement and the stability analyses, as the Safe Dams program had separated the stability package to get reviewed by a third party. And that third party is Schnabel Engineering, who's one of our counterparts in the industry. And so once they did that, we weren't sure how long it would take. So we've since submitted that drain package independently. So that way we can move the process along and hopefully get a contractor and get this work implemented later this year. The 30% low-level outlet replacement design has been completed. I mentioned the stability analysis that was previously submitted. That was last year. We have a little update there. And then also the biannual engineering inspection has been completed for Lake Pettit. So a professional engineer, actually a Georgia engineer of record for Safe Dams, has inspected the dam. The upcoming activities we see happening this year will be, if we do receive any comments, and we do expect some, we anticipate they'll be relatively minor, but on the stability package, we'll address whatever those are and keep that moving forward. If there are any more on the drain package, we will get that moving as well, but that's in Georgia Safe Dams' hands right now. The drain package, we expect to get comments or a reply back in the next 30 days. So waiting on those final comments. As I mentioned, we'll then move forward with that interceptor drain replacement. And the low-level outlet, which I'll get to here in a minute. Hopefully we'll be doing construction on that later this year to finalize that replacement. We'll also be starting the design for the spillway replacement as well later on this year. So the next slide, a little about the low-level outlet design. Won't go necessarily into all the background here, but we are moving forward. As I mentioned, we've taken 2 alternatives for replacement of the existing system to 30% level design. We have reviewed those options with Georgia Safe Dams. Scott mentioned we met with them yesterday to go through that as we move forward from 30 to essentially what will be the design submittal to them for Georgia Safe Dams. And we anticipate having a meeting with them on that design submittal in late May and having the design submitted to them by the 31st of May. A couple of things on the design. We have a some of it shown here. I don't expect to go into all the details, but one of the items here is replacing the existing system that is kind of independently supported on multiple 30 to 40 foundations down at the bottom along the length of the dam with a continuous frame that we were looking for ways to be efficient, because the installation of this is really where the costs are. And so the Georgia Safe Dams program has shared in our meeting with them that they appreciated our unique approach here and trying to minimize the underwater costs, and also that there are several other dams similar, maybe not the same size in Georgia, but that are having similar problems. And this is a solution that they appreciated the uniqueness of, I guess, the creativity in getting going, and they'll hopefully share this with others. And so we have another alternative. I won't get into that design, but we do want to make sure we're taking those forward, because as I mentioned, the underwater cost here of diving and installation will be the driver. And we want to make sure the POAs, understanding the full cost and these alternatives and which one might be the best for moving forward and situating the dam for the next 50 years. We're working with a RFP right now, also trying to get the contractors on board for this and get the cost aligned with this. So we'll be sending the RFP out as well. Then once we have that contractor on board, we'll have their input on some of the final design of this in terms of, implementability, scheduling, and other things that will really drive that cost. So next slide. I mentioned these already, but just to kind of get a little more detail on them. The stability package that is being reviewed, once we said we submitted it last April. Schnabel's reviewing it right now. We understand that there's a meeting today with the Safe Dams and that party to review it. So hopefully sometime next week, we hopefully will receive comments there. Maybe next 2 weeks. It just depends on what comes there. So hopefully we'll be getting to wrap that up shortly, but it's still waiting on the Safe Dams, I guess, formal letter here. I mentioned the interceptor drains as well. Again, we would sent that in on 08 of March, and I know there's been some illness going around, so it might not be exactly 30 days to get those comments back, but we hope to have them within the next 30 days. While that's going on, we're still moving forward with contractors as well to line them up and get them on the schedules with an RFP. So when we do get that finalized, we will be able to move right into construction and at least have it on schedule and be ready to roll. And the engineering and inspection as well. And so those engineering inspections, as I mentioned in the December meeting, we're not just inspecting it twice or every 2 years. The POAs asked Geosyntec in our group to be out there quarterly. So we're actually putting our eyes on it much more often than is required by the state. And so those inspection reports will be going in April. Scott, that's all I had, unless there's any questions or other items I could address.
Hey, Wes, this is Terry. Thanks for the update. Should other communities adopt your creative design, we will expect a royalty from that, okay?
Understood. We'll see what we can
Okay.
do on the
All right.
patent
Yeah.
office. Yes, sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Actually, I have a question, Wes. This is Sandy Polera. I'm also on the board. Under the stability analysis, you make reference to the third-party review.
Yes.
Will you clarify, this is not a third-party review that either Geosyntec or Big Canoe POA has hired and is holding things up? This is a third-party consultant from Georgia Safe Dams, correct?
You're correct. That's right, Sandy. And that's a good point to clarify. It is something that the Safe Dams program recognized they may not have the in-house expertise to formally comment upon. So they had, and that's one reason it's taken a little longer. And while we're ultimately splitting these up, they had to get somebody, they had to send a contract out, they had to get somebody in place. And there's been a little bumps along the way for them to get that reviewed. So that is Georgia Safe Dams program electing to have that reviewed by a third party.
Thank you.
Wes is going to hang around, so if there's any questions either online or in the room at the end of the meeting, we can definitely ask him then. Just to get rid of any further confusion, so we have budgeted in this year's capital 1.7 million. That was part of our approved budget that we got approved by the board last November, and that is in this year's plan. And we have built a incredibly detailed Microsoft project schedule that Wes tracks weekly, if not daily. And we and Georgia Safe Dams are in sync on that schedule. They were pushing us, we were pushing ourselves, and quite frankly, our desires and their desires lined up really, really well. I think we were about a week off until we actually met and said, hey, we're thinking the same thing you guys are thinking. We need to get this moving quickly. We have been doing a lot of exploration, a lot of evaluation. Geosyntec spent a fair amount of time last year trying to look at other alternatives for the lower level outlet that might have saved the POA an awful lot of expense. And those alternatives, just engineering physics wise, really couldn't pan out. But what they've now come up with is pretty innovative. And as Wes said, I think Georgia Safe Dams is fascinated to see how the design works out at the 100% level, because other people have this same problem. These dams, a lot of dams in Georgia are pretty old. They're pretty tall, and it's hard to work underwater and costs an awful lot of money. So we're, I think, kind of leading the way here and forging some new territory. So we're kind of proud of that. So anyway, more time for questions later. So thank you, Wes. Go ahead with the next slide. Thanks. Okay, go ahead. Finance report. Let's talk about February amenity net income. So number one, Clubhouse was off of budget by 10,000 on the low side. That was all revenue. So in the past, as we talked about last year, it was either a cost of sales variance or usually a labor variance. This year so far, those things are looking pretty good. It was revenue. And I think that the majority of that is due to the fact that a new restaurant opened down the street, and everybody gets pretty excited, including me, when a new restaurant opens in this area and we all try it out. We're kind of tracking now at the 2022 level, which is when we had another restaurant out by Fuegos that is no longer there. So if I look at March numbers, our revenue is actually right back on track as far as food is concerned. So I'm not too worried about that yet from a full year point of view or anything like that. But that variance was there in February. Golf, on the other hand, had an amazing month. So 1643 rounds versus 1023, which was what was in our plan. Only 4 days of weather got in the way of that. So 34,000 to the good on golf. Wellness, pretty close. The variance there is due to benefits. More people selected healthcare than we originally had planned when we built the budget. We had a very aggressive plan this year to try to help our employees and get people signed up into HSAs. And we were pretty successful in doing that, which is great for our future and great for our employees and great for their families, but a little bit of a variance for us on the budget. Racquet Club is doing quite well, nice and strong there. Aquatics is kind of a no-brainer this time of year. There's not too much on aquatics. Marina had a tougher month. Weekends weren't always so beautiful in the month of February, so John was a bit off on the rental income. Again, March is looking pretty good on the boat side of it. And amenity management, as we talked about last time, we hired the clubhouse manager, Paul Delgado, a few months earlier than what we had planned way back in September when we built the budget. So if you add all that together, we are 17,000 to the good in February on the amenity net income and $2,000 better than last year at this time. Go ahead for the year to date. So if you look at year to date, the most interesting thing is probably a couple of things. Clubhouse is off by 6,800. Again, not a really big number on a complicated operation, but we watch it like a hawk. Golf is just killing it. Very, very large number positive there. And you go all the way to the bottom, the amenity net income is 25,000 to the good, which is about almost 8,000 better than 2023. Go ahead, next slide. If you put the whole package together, this is all of Big Canoe's finances. So general operating revenue, right on track. Operating expenses were 25,000 to the good in February. Lots of pluses and minuses there, whether it's garbage collection being over and some wages being under. We are pretty serious about architectural control. And so we have some positive variance there on our fines. And we only book the money there that we actually collect. So if there's other fines that are pending or other appeals that are pending or anything like that, that is not counted in our financials until it happens. Amenity net income, as we talked about, was 17 to the good. You put all that together, net income before depreciation was almost 43,000 positive compared to our budget for February. Depreciation about right on track. So net income from operation, 45,000 positive. We have sold less houses than when we built the plan. We thought we were kind of conservative on house sales, but we apparently needed to be a little bit more conservative. So the CCF is running a little bit lower than what we had anticipated. So if you put all that together into a Big Canoe POA comprehensive net income, it's 26,000 to the good in February. Go ahead, flip the shadow there. And we'll go right to the bottom. So year to date, the net income before depreciation is 60,000 to the good, and the comprehensive net income is 57,000 to the good. So first 2 months we're pretty pleased with, and March on the amenities was trending pretty nicely when we looked at it a couple days ago. So, and Jane, I'll let you go ahead and do the account status.
Yeah, so let me talk about cash a little bit because that's always where I like to look at it to make sure that we're on plan for what we need to do capital wise and operation wise. So we started at the beginning of the year with 8.3 million, about 8.25 million actually. And we are at the end of February, ended at 8.54 million. And what we do, what you have to, how we collect that is you have the income from your operations, you have the income from our capital assessment portion and our capital fund that we have. And also with our uses, we have spent on principal about 230,000 on principal payments for our Wells Fargo loan that we have. And our capital spend is about 656,000 for the first 2 months of 2024. The balances at the bottom, our operating cash is about 1.6. Our capital fund is 1.75. Our CCF fund is about 2,225,000, and our capital reserve, which I always call our savings account for emergencies, is about 2.95 million. So we're creeping up to that 3 million in that account. So you add all those up and you get to the 8.54 million that we have in cash. Any questions from the board?
So we spent 656,000 and we've got $300,000 more in the bank than we started with. That's what it all boils down to. Thank you.
Want to introduce Bill?
Bill? This is Bill Thurber, Finance and Audit Committee Chair. And as I mentioned earlier, a property owner here and he volunteers his time to help the community, just like the balance of the Finance and Audit Committee. So Bill, thanks for joining us.
Sorry about that. I've been a property owner since 2007. And as Terry said, I chair the Finance and Audit Committee. I'm a former CFO. I've been on the committee since kind of mid 2020. And I just wanted to remind everybody what our committee is made up of. We're made up of former CPAs, public accountants, some former CFOs, bankers, and other business leaders. We also have a subcommittee that deals with risk management and insurance. These are people who are subject matter experts, I call them. They're leaders in the field of insurance and deal with the POA and the board on all matters related to insurance. Point of all of that is these people are highly qualified people. They're leaders in their field. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank them publicly for their volunteerism and the time and effort and energy that they put in, hard work serving our community and for the benefit of the property owners as well. And I was going to talk about social media, but you did a very good job of that, Terry. But I did ask for a few minutes on the agenda to kind of talk about a couple of things, not only as the chair of the committee, but as a fellow property owner. So a couple of areas, and I won't take too much time. So let's talk a little bit about accountability for a second. There's been things circled around, if you will, about transparency and accountability of the board and other folks. So I just wanted to walk through that a little bit from my perspective. I mean, the people sitting over here at this table, they're board members that every one of us as property owners, as Terry said earlier, we elect them and we put our trust in them, and they are accountable to all of us as property owners. We have a Finance and Audit Committee that I chair that is I call it a conduit to the board and to management for all things pertaining to finance and risk management. The POA board treasurer, Sandy Pilara, sits in and liaises with our community and brings information back to the board from the Finance and Audit Committee. Management, Scott and his teams are accountable to the board, and they meet with our committee on a monthly basis and sometimes more frequently during budget season than monthly. And they present and discuss financial performance with us in pretty good detail every month. And we also talk about other financial matters, whether it be interest rates, whether it be capital expenditures, but anything pertaining to the finance function is discussed at our meetings. And as I said, we act as a conduit back to the board. And then finally, we have annual audits that are performed by a reputable independent accounting firm that has vast experience in the nonprofit arena. And the way I see it is the fact that we have clean audits on an annual basis speaks very strongly to how accountable that chain is from the board all the way down. So I just wanted people who maybe weren't aware of that, to hear that directly from a fellow property owner who serves on a committee. So let's talk a little bit about three things, kind of accounting, if you will, cash, and bank covenants, because there's been stuff out there about this. So we do our accounting based on something called GAAP. For the non-accountants in the room, that's generally accepted accounting principles. They are well established, as opposed to what some people call specific fund accounting for a nonprofit. Even though we are a not-for-profit entity, we do GAAP accounting, and our independent auditors support that and agree with us on that treatment. So what does that mean? So operationally, it means that So all of our cash receipts are funneled into one operating account. Okay, now why do we do that? So everybody in this room and out there in the YouTube land, if you will, you get a bill from the POA every month, and it has a general assessment on it. It has expenses that you've incurred in your activities around Big Canoe, and it also has a capital assessment on it. So imagine if we asked you to write 2 different checks, one for your general assessment and your expenses, and one for your capital assessment. Not very efficient, doesn't make, a whole lot of sense to do that. So what happens is these funds go into our operating account, and then our accounting team makes physical transfers of the appropriate amounts of cash related to general and expenses and capital to the appropriate cash accounts that actually you see up here on the screen. They're accounted for in our formal accounting records. The money is physically transferred. And this is, I haven't been around forever, but I was a CFO and a finance guy for a very long time. This is a very common practice. It happens every day in businesses all over. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these accounts because Jane put them up on the screen and talked through them. But back when we were talking about Renew Big Canoe, I did a couple of presentations and talked about what these accounts are and what they mean. The operating account, excuse me, is for, as I said, normal assessments and operational stuff. Our capital fund is funded through our capital assessments plus surplus from operations as capital is spent. We have a master plan CCF fund, which our capital contribution fees from property sales are deposited to. And then we have a capital reserve fund, which, as Jane said, we kind of call that our rainy day fund. Management, and I think the board as well, has always said that's the fund that we don't plan to ever touch unless something really bad happens. And so those are our 4 primary accounts. And so we have a bank covenant with Wells Fargo that, I won't read the whole thing, but basically it says we have to have unencumbered liquid assets of not less than $1 million tested every quarter. Okay, so what does that mean? Unencumbered liquid assets. So there are things like cash, certificates of deposit, other, money market funds and what have you, all agreed upon by the bank at their discretion. Okay. So what does encumbered mean? And I thought about that, and there's this person named Google, and there are a number of different definitions, but a general definition of what encumbrance means, and I'm just going to read this. It says an encumbrance is a claim against a property, an asset, by a party that is not the owner. An encumbrance can impact the transferability of the property or asset and restrict its free use until the encumbrance is lifted. Key words there. Claim against a property by a party that is not the owner. Okay. We are the owners of the cash accounts. Okay. So just in summary, I'm just going to lay it out there. Okay. We have strong accountability in this organization. None of our cash accounts is legally encumbered. There is no current board policy or procedure that requires us to maintain any specific balance in our operating account, like $1 million. Okay. And our lender has confirmed to us that we are in compliance. So I'll leave you with one thought. Don't believe everything you might read. Thanks for giving me a few minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, property owner and neighbor. Appreciate it. Well, shall we get down to some business? Y'all ready to get into some business? Some business? So the first thing let's do is I'll turn it over to Mark for approval on previous board minutes. So Mark?
Yeah, you think that was exciting? Boy, this is really exciting. So I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 25th, 2024 special board meeting.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
This guy.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor of approval, raise your right hand, please.
That
Thank you.
looks to be unanimous.
Yep.
And wait, there's more. I'd like to make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from that same March 25th, 2024 special board meeting.
I second that motion.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor, raise your hand. Great. And by the way, just so we review all of these minutes and everything, so it's not as if Mark is saying something we already haven't looked at and so forth. So I just want everybody to know that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Elton, I'm going to turn it over to you for the Hillside color palette.
Thank you, Terry. At the request of the Cox Mountain Hillside Property Owners Association and the POA Board of Directors, the AEC has approved and recommended the following additions to the Hillside exterior color palette. All the permitted colors for the Wildcat neighborhood, except for some of the very light colors, which are specifically identified in the proposed exhibit to the standards pertaining to the Cox Mountain Hillside exterior paint colors and stains. The permissible colors will be published on the POA website. We have a motion to approve. I make a motion to approve, please.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor? Show of hands. Okay. You have a count, Mark? Okay.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Alton. That's been in the works for a long time. That's one of the things the board didn't approve on. Okay. For those of you that live in Hillside, you know that. But we got to a resolution. So sorry it took more than a minute. The last item on the agenda is a little update from me. There are two things I would like to update you on. Number one, where are we in the process for the clubhouse? Number two, where are we in relation to Voice of the Community Survey number 2? So first, the clubhouse. What I'm going to share with you is not new info, but there's been some questions. So I want to clarify the process with everyone that was previously shared on February the 29th. As Scott mentioned, we have KDC, our architect, complete the renderings for the clubhouse based on some enhancements and value engineering over the last 2 or 3 months. Tremendous amount of work's been put in that. As Scott mentioned, we will see it for the first time on April 1st. No fooling. And you will see it, the same thing that we see on April the 20th. I'm not sure of the timing of those meetings, probably 10 o'clock and 11:30. Okay. Stay tuned for the exact time, but they'll be in the morning. How about that? Also, want to keep in mind the process that we have followed since the beginning of all of this. Last year, we presented the conceptual drawings and floor plans to get preliminary cost estimates and present the overall vision to you. We had several town hall meetings and created a very informational website, leading to a vote of the property owners of over 60% to proceed with the project. As Scott mentioned, we then followed with the okay to go ahead and keep moving forward. We ordered the detailed engineering surveys and plans to allow us to go out for firm bids. And what you will see on April the 20th is the visual representation of all of that. It's a pretty exciting day. Monday is going to be exciting too. The plan is to send out for RFPs, as Scott mentioned, to 3 general contractors in the May, early June timeframe. And upon receipt of those is when we will factually know cost, ability to stay open based on construction timelines, and the associated costs of staying open or closing. We need to allow the process to continue so the board can make fully informed decisions once we have all the data and facts. Until we know the true costs, timelines, GC recommendation, and any other variable, we can't make any decision. I assure you, we will make what is the best decision for the overall community, whatever it may be. Well, Terry, what if this happens? Terry, what if that's happened? We don't, until we have all of the facts, it's all conjecture. So please allow the process to continue. We're a lot closer than we were 3 months ago, and we'll certainly update you. And once we get to that decision point, we'll tell you why we made the decision and obviously answer any questions. So that's an update on the clubhouse process. Number 2 subject, where are we on the Voice of the Community survey number 2 that I mentioned back on February the 29th? As Scott mentioned, the census is in process. Reminder, 11:45, not 11:46 apparently, but 11:45 Sunday night. It takes like 3 minutes at the most to fill it out. So that's in process. And we will share, as Scott mentioned, the results of the census. We'll compare it to what the census was before and show you what has changed. It is some interesting data, and I've not seen all the data, by the way. The development of the Voice of the Community number 2 questionnaire is in process, although we have not set a date yet for sending it out to the community. With the recent investor changes with BCC that Mike has shared on February the 29th, there is no final decision yet on whether BCC would include their list of questions or not. They're certainly welcome to. We will continue the process to complete the POA questions, and if it is appropriate and the right timing, then we will include the BCC questions. Once we know a little bit more over the next several weeks, then we'll certainly share with you the timing of the community survey number 2. But there will be a community survey number 2. So that's an update on a couple topics that's been of interest to some people. So that really concludes our board agenda. So any questions or comments from anyone on the board about any topic that we've covered?
I'll just say one thing. I know that there are a couple of brand new property owners here tonight. And BCC refers to the Big Canoe Company, which is the developer that is part of this whole situation. So just in case you weren't aware.
Thank you. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second.
Any questions or comments? Duh. All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, meeting adjourned. Great. So now we have the opportunity to go into Q&A. And we will do as we've done in the past. And Craig is our mic person. So we will take questions from the room here first. Then we will go to live stream for any questions. Then we'll come back to the room, and then we'll go back to live stream for any questions. So who would like to go first?
I'm Larry Milgren, 176 Willow Drive. Based upon what you said at the start, I'm almost reluctant to say this, but on the golf course, somebody said there was a presentation between the developers and Wyndham Hotels and the board. Is that anything at all?
Between Wyndham Hotels and the board? No.
The developer with Wyndham Hotels.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm actually glad you brought that up. Okay. The answer to your question is no. Okay, so, but I want to clarify. We had a meeting just this week with Big Canoe Company with their ideas on what they would like to do. And it's 100,000-foot view at this point. There's absolutely no detail on anything. So there's not been a Wyndham presentation to the board or anything like that. But Big Canoe Company has had conversation with us, kind of like on their wish list. And the cool thing about this, Big Canoe Company, BCC, thanks, Mark, we're all talking. We're no longer have POA's head in the sand in this sandbox and Big CC's head, Mike's head in the sand of in another sandbox. We're talking, and one of our board goals, well, one of them was proactive communication to the community. One of the other three was an improved relationship with Big Canoe Company. So it is more important to be talking than not talking. But as Mike mentioned, we don't agree on everything. Okay. But we do agree on some things. I'm looking for that one thing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. So thank you for asking that question. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes, Tom Durbin, 39 Sconti Knoll. So no pun intended, this is a damn question. So I don't know if towards you, Scott, or towards Wes, but it's more in terms of clarity for some people in the community that maybe haven't been around as long. But one of Big Canoe's more vocal and frequent online critics, I'm on his toxic wall of shame, by the way, has suggested there's considerable friction between us and Geosyntec and Georgia Safe Dams. I don't believe that's accurate, but I would love to hear an explanation. Thank you.
It's a really good story when you make that stuff up. That's the explanation. So no, it's not true at all. So as I said, Georgia Safe Dams put together an email. The email basically said, we need you guys to hit these dates. It was kind of good. I mean, I welcomed it because we had been talking with Wes and his team to do the same thing. And we were thinking the same thing, which is we need to get this moving forward. We're ready to make the decision about the low level outlet, et cetera, et cetera. And basically what Georgia Safe Dams was requesting was incredibly consistent with what Wes and I were planning. So Wes talked to Georgia Safe Dams, said, here's our plans. Georgia Safe Dams said, we're good with that. We would like to have more frequent communication. We said, we love that idea. That's terrific. And one of those communications was yesterday, where we presented everything that you guys saw. They saw yesterday in a bit more detail. And everybody is singing Kumbaya. No, really, everybody is, we have the same goals. We have the same timeline. We have the same commitments to meet that timeline. We have Georgia Safe Dams' full support to provide us resources, get us answers as quickly as possible. And some of this is, as Wes said, on their timetable, right? We are waiting for the stability results. We are waiting for the permit to go ahead and do the interceptor drains. We have committed to them that there will be a design review for the lower level outlet in the month of May, and that we will then submit the final permit request for the lower level outlet at the end of May. So I would say our relationship's actually stronger than it's probably ever been, and very amicable, and we are in sync on goals and dates. So thanks for asking. Wes, any comments you'd add to that?
No, just echoing what Scott said. I agree totally. It's a good relationship with them.
Okay. All right. Any have another one over here? Yep.
I actually have two, Carolyn Witt, lot number 2191. The first one is with respect to the dam situation. as a layperson, when I look at the timeline, it just seems to be exceptionally long. I have my hard time getting my head around information that was submitted in April of 2023 has still not been acted on. Now, again, this is not my field of expertise. So I can either reach one of two conclusions. One is that somebody is dragging their feet and being non-responsive. Or the second conclusion is that this is the norm. So Wes, I would just like your response. Which of my two conclusions is the more accurate?
Well, I'd like to say it's not the norm, but we do get some things that take a little longer in the Georgia Safe Dams realm. I don't know their full numbers, but I do believe they're a little understaffed and because of the need for third-party review here, maybe not the skills that are necessary for certain reviews. And it's no fault of their own. They're doing their best, I think, with what they have.
Well, normally if I'm encountering non-responsiveness as an individual, I make it my business to follow up and to urge and to nudge and so on and so forth. So why are you, Geosyntec, as our engineering expertise representative, not being more assertive or more aggressive in bringing this thing down the line? It just seems like every month we come to these meetings and, oh, it just happened yesterday. Well, you know, there's been 30 days in between the meeting that happened and the meeting that's happening. And yet we wait till the last minute for action. So
I would like to address that.
I just don't, I don't understand, because you're hearing one thing over here and another thing over here. And why are we not moving this forward?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that question. And if you've got a second question, we'll come back to you after others have an opportunity. Nobody's dragging their feet at all.
Okay.
Just because there happened to be a meeting yesterday, when we get to April the 29th, we can say that was 5 weeks ago. Geosyntec has been in constant touch, as well as the POA and Scott with Georgia Safe Dams. As Wes has mentioned, they've said they're understaffed. And, we can only move as fast as they will allow us to move. And you mentioned April 23 drawings. Yeah, it's been a month. It's been a year. Excuse me. It's been a year. But nobody's dragging their feet, because we would love to have had this done 9 months ago and spent the money 9 months ago to have it done. But we can only move as fast as they will let us. So we're not sitting back and going, well, we hope they contact us sometime over the next several months. That's not the case, I assure you. Thank you for your question. Any other questions in here?
Clay Hildebrand, 174 Starlight Lane. We just moved in November. Closer, okay. 174 Starlight Lane. We just moved in November after a 4-year build. And so I don't really understand the inner workings of the board with architectural control or other places. This is, I'm throwing this out here is just to learn, and hope you'll be patient with it for a moment. The construction, though very long, had only one really bad thing, and that's the driveway, which was very steep, had to be concrete, and was supposed to be black. And so I'm a member of there's this group of people called, NBE, not black enough because of the driveways.
And in my case, we were told to dye into the concrete when we did it. And that, so we'd have a black driveway, which we did. Very expensive to do that on this long driveway, steep 20-degree grade. And then we were told that's not black enough. So then the next thing we ran into was that it needed to be stained or treated in some way. So we paid to do that. And that ended up being dangerous because when water hit it, trucks were sliding off the driveway. So we had to pay for people to come out with stuff to get that off, which was expensive, long, and toxic to them. So we sit now with a driveway that is still not black enough after those steps, trying to understand what that definition. I'm told there's a machine that's being bought to determine blackness. And I'm trying to understand, I want to support the requirement, but I'm having a hard time getting my head around it because my driveway's darker than the street and darker than other driveways. And so I'm thinking, and I'm trying to make it safe more than anything because of the steepness and the way it channels rain. So the question in general is the board aware of this going on? What's the involvement? How is Big Canoe trying to get this to a conclusion? So all residents, whether they have concrete in my case or asphalt or other things, can live up to a requirement and support a unified requirement.
You live
Thank
in
you.
the Bluffs. I was at your driveway. Not at your house. By the way, you've got a beautiful long driveway and a beautiful home up there. In answer to your question, yes, the board is fully aware. The decision by the board last November to put in the requirements for the range of black, we revisited this board in January, and we put a moratorium on anything to do with concrete driveways and sent the Architectural Control Committee back to the drawing board and say, hey, here are some of the challenges. Are we too strict on the level of blackness? I mean, we don't want driveways to, turn out white or gray because we've got to stay within our standards. So the answer is yes, we're aware. It's back in Architectural Control's hands. They will be making a motion, a presentation to the board in the next week or two, and the board will make a decision. But the short answer is the range of the color is going to open up. I can't say, is it within range of yours or not, because I don't know. But I am aware that you had concerns on your driveway, and that's why I personally went by and looked at it. Okay.
And just a little more background, the way it works is the board sets architectural guidelines and also rules and regulations. It's then up to the Architectural Control Department, which is Trina and Ron, and the Architectural Control Committee, which is property owners who are the first level of appeal, to basically enforce those rules and regs. And in the case of, or architectural standards, in the case of rules and regs, it's up to public safety to support those rules and regs. So the board basically defines the standard. It's our job then to enforce the standard. And then there's a whole appeal process or something if a property owner wants to appeal, first to a committee and then to the board.
We will share the requirements with the community once it's decided. Yeah, we certainly will. Any other questions in here? Okay.
My first task was to be able to stand up. Could I get an update on the chimneys building? What's happening, what's going to go on, et cetera? I understand that it's wrapped to cut out asbestos emissions, if that's the right word.
Sure.
A couple of my thoughts in the background, as it sits, it's a wasted asset. And a wasted asset is a cost, however you wish to address that. And then there is the second cost, if there is a cost, of either the tear down and rebuild or the remediation, which is an actual dollar cost. Help me out.
Okay, all right. Scott, you want to answer that?
I can answer the first part, which is the building went through a remediation process where they took out all the asbestos, which also included taking out most of the HVAC system because all the water with all of the debris went down into all the ductwork, ruining the ductwork, et cetera. So we have a building, as you point out, that's sitting there that no longer has much of flooring in it, no longer has a bunch of drywall in it, no longer has a heating and cooling system in it. And it's been made safe, but it's not usable. We have an insurance settlement. Jane talked about that a few months ago. That money is sitting in one of those accounts that Bill was talking about, and it's sitting there. So part of what we are doing, the Long Range Planning Committee had brought forth a plan saying we would like to build a post office. We would like to do that in the village core. We would like to take the Chimneys building and turn it into an administration building so we could then give the lodge back to property owners for events and meetings and things like that. So it's all kind of a jigsaw puzzle. So the first step in all of that is to get good quotes back on the clubhouse and on the post office. And as Terry mentioned, then the board will look at that with the finance committee, look at the funding profile and things like that, and determine what the next moves are for all four of those buildings. So clubhouse, administration with the Chimneys, postal, is that going to happen in the village core or is it not going to happen in the village core at all? And we will make all of those, and lodge, of course, which, you know, until there's an administration building, we can't go anywhere, which means we can't turn the lodge back to the property owners. So it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle right now. And the first part of that jigsaw puzzle is getting those quotes back from the general contractors this summer on clubhouse and on postal. And until then, the building is really locked up, made safe, but we don't want people crawling around in there because there's lots of wires and missing parts of it.
That's a very fair question. The shorter answer, Terry's answer is it was further down the priority list of Renew Big Canoe until we had answers to two pretty big ones, clubhouse and post office. We've just paused any effort on it whatsoever. So who knows what it will be used for in the future? Don't know yet. So 1 second. Microphone, please.
At the meeting last month, you all said that we were looking at off-site lease locations for administrative offices. Now you're just said all that was on hold. So where are we one way or the other? Are we looking at leasing office space off-site for administrative offices? Or is that plan no longer being considered?
What we said was, since we're not going to move forward with the Chimneys now, we needed to look at other options for the staff because we have them in closets and we have them at the Public Works building. One of those ideas was to look at off-site office space. And I don't know, Scott can share where it is in the process. So what you're saying is correct. We mentioned that, but that was just one option that we were looking at.
So at the moment, it looks to me like we can save the POA money. I'm always trying to save the POA money. Trying to save the POA money by taking the 4 people that are in conference rooms over in Public Works and doing some jiggering around between the current clubhouse and between the lodge so that we can find homes for those folks while we're figuring out all of this, you know, what's happening with the postal, what's happening with the Chimneys, you know, how does the whole cash flow picture look, et cetera. So I think I can get them out of Public Works, get them out of the conference room, give the conference room back to Public Works without spending any money of the property owners. Because otherwise I got to enter into a lease. That's additional cash flow I don't want to spend. We got to get a temporary building. I mean, all that stuff is just expensive. So until all those other plans solidify, I think I can make it work with what I've got for now. Hope that helps.
So we're probably not going to have to rent office space anywhere.
In the shelter.
Okay.
Buddy Williams, 2521. Mike Ziegler, could you think we might interest your Wyndham consortium to buy some prime property we call the Chimneys? And then we can take that money and build an administrative building, which we desperately need.
But the first part of your question, I wasn't able to hear you. It was sort of a blur through the speakers up here. Could you say that again?
But would it be possible for your Wyndham partner and you and BCC to be interested in purchasing some prime property we call the Chimneys, so that we could take that money and build an administrative building that we desperately need?
Buddy, if you think that's a great idea, I'm on board. Come on over to the office and we'll sit down and put a pro forma together for you. All right.
Okay. Any other questions in here? Okay, let's go to online.
All right. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Our first question is from David Hopkins, lot 4002. And David has some questions and would like for Scott to discuss details about inventory losses at the clubhouse in 2023.
Yes.
For those who couldn't hear it, that was from David Hopkins. He was asking questions about inventory losses at the clubhouse in 2023. For those who may not know, there was a blog that came out this afternoon, kind of had a sensational headline, something about losing $1 million in the clubhouse. We didn't lose $1 million in the clubhouse. As we reported in December and for our year end, we actually lost $655,000 in the clubhouse. I also want to let you know, it's kind of interesting. We did a little presentation on the clubhouse for Leadership Big Canoe, and one of the facts that nobody knew is out of the clubhouse losses, whatever they are, $250,000 of that loss goes to our employees. So we basically take care of our employees with healthcare subsidy, with HSA subsidy, with 401k matching, with long-term disability. Almost no other restaurant I know of even provides employee benefits. So when we say, why is, our pro forma different from another restaurant? We believe in taking care of our employees. It's one of our parts of our strategic plan. And because the clubhouse functions with all of our other hundreds of employees, they're all on the same benefits plan. So whenever you hear a loss of the clubhouse, take $250,000 off of that immediately, because that's what's going to try to help our employees' lives be a little bit better here in food and beverage. Regarding David's specific question about inventory, our best practice for years has been to do inventory every single month at the clubhouse. It's a great thing to do. It makes sure that you have the latest numbers, the most correct numbers, etc. For the last 6 months, 5 to 6 months of 2023, our staff was not in a position to be able to do that on a monthly basis. We already talked about the heroic efforts that Chef Michael and his team were doing, and they were pretty heroic because he was rebuilding that whole team. And during that period of time, we made the decision Jane and I, that we would do estimated inventory each month, knowing that at the end of the year, we would do a deep dive, 100% accurate, full true up of our inventory, which is exactly what happened. At the end of December, we spent the 2 days, we went through every freezer, we went through every box, we went through every detail and made sure that we were fully accounting for every single piece of our inventory. When we did that, that basically took our cost of sales for the full year up by $100,000. So it was at 41% cost of sales. If you look at 2022, we ran a little bit north of 39% cost of sales. So basically, our financials are 100% accurate. What's posted on the website is 100% accurate. It's all based on a very accurate, methodical inventory that was done at the end of the year. And it's extremely consistent with our normal cost of sales that we run at the clubhouse. So when we explained the full year variance several months ago, when we did the full end of year explanation in here, we talked a lot about the biggest problem at the clubhouse not being inventory or cost of sales. The biggest issue we had to face compared to other years was the cost of labor. And that's why we singled that out and spent a lot of time talking about that with y'all. But the cost of sales is accurate. It's trued up with real live inventory, and it's very consistent with where we normally run at the clubhouse, which is 39 to 41%. And we're doing a lot to try to bring that down a little bit, but that's pretty typical for us. So hope that helps.
And the financials that are posted on the website, December says preliminary. The reason it's preliminary is, as consistent in the past, is we're waiting for the final audit to take place. Once Malden and Jenkins goes, yep, or no, whatever the case may be, hopefully we'll get another, I don't know how many years, consecutive clean audits. Then it will convert from preliminary to final. That is the only reason the word preliminary is on the financial statement. Thank you. Kat, do you have another question?
I do. I have a couple more. So the next one is from Michael Ehrlich, lot 3554. Michael notes that Amazon has been delivering to our homes, and he asks for an update on the new post office.
So Amazon is delivering to our homes, which took a couple years and a lot of phone calls and a small act of God, I think, to make happen. But they are, and we know of no plans that they will change that, but they can change that. And sometimes they elect to deliver through the post office, and sometimes they elect to bring things up in trucks. So as we've said before, we have a plan for the post office. We have drawings for the post office. They allow for e-commerce expansion. They allow for a separate dock for Amazon in case Amazon ever changes their mind again and starts to bring things back to the package porch. We would have a way for them to do that if ever need be. And as Terry keeps saying, we have to follow the process now. So those drawings, the site work we've been doing on where to place the post office, all that will be part of what the general contractors look at in May and June. They'll come back to us with some pretty firm very firm numbers on the clubhouse, pretty good numbers on the post office. At that point, the board can make a decision about how we move forward on the postal project. Anything else?
Okay. Kat, do you have another question online?
I do. We have another question from Mr. Hopkins, lot 4002. He asks if GSD, Geosyntec, and the POA is in constant contact, why are open record requests not reflecting those communications?
Yeah, so the question was if, I'll rephrase it to be correct, since the POA Georgia Safe Dams and Geosyntec are in constant contact. How come not all of that is seen in his open records request?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be a
that's-
question for Georgia Safe Dams.
Right.
And based on prior not-for-profit experience in the healthcare world, those requests have to be very specific. So if you ask for a pen, you get a pen. You don't get a whole, you don't get anything else. So I'm sure it depends on how the questions are phrased and how the people that process those requests answer those requests. But yeah, that's.
And
Go ahead.
to the mic.
Just to clarify, the state of Georgia open records request, that's really not something that we frame. They have to submit their request to the state agency, which is Georgia Safe Dams. And that's the actual entity that will reply to the citizen, Mr. Hopkins. We don't write the response for the state of Georgia. That's Georgia Safe Dams' responsibility.
And
Okay.
therefore, we don't know what's sent, requested, or
Yeah.
any of that.
Okay. Kat, do you have another question?
I have one more. We have Michelle Hanson, lot 8151. She would like an update, or actually would like to know where the wellness center lies on the list of priorities, with a special concern around the indoor pool area.
In this muffin.
The question was, where does the wellness center lie in terms of priorities? And especially for the indoor pool area?
Yeah.
So I'll flip that. We'll do the indoor pool first. So we are looking at improving the humidity control system in that building. You may all know that we've changed the pool from salt water back to chlorine. It was not healthy for our environmental control system to sit in a saltwater environment. And they don't recommend that you try to put dehumidifiers, big commercial dehumidifiers in a saltwater environment. They don't last. They get corroded, the coils fail. Think about a beach house, right? Things don't last at a beach house. So we flipped it back. Lydell and Scotty are working on a plan to improve the humidity control. The lead time on some of those parts is going to be pretty long, but we are going to improve the humidity situation in the natatorium. That's a short-term problem that we're focusing on. There has been work done with KDC Architects, with the Long Range Planning Committee, to look at some options for potentially increasing space in the wellness center, doing some small additions to give us additional floor space for equipment, for classes and things like that. That again is all part of this process as we start to get real life costs back on all of these projects. We can figure out where in the long range plan here, where does a bigger change for the wellness center slot in?
Okay. Thank you. Kat, any other questions?
That is it for online. Thank you.
Okay, let's come back in here. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, Carolyn's got one for me.
This one is a golf question for Lydell. Everyone in the golf community knows that when a man reaches the age of 70, he has an alternate tee-off option. He can tee off from the green tees. We don't have such an option that I'm aware of when a woman reaches the age of 70. And with the renovation taking place on Choctaw, if I focus my attention specifically on Choctaw 5 and Choctaw 8, do you have any plans to offer an option for the women over 70?
The new concept which we started on Creek and is continuing on Choctaw, will be 5 tee options, none of which are associated with male or female. Anyone is allowed to play from any tee box. The forwardmost tee is moving up on every hole, just like we did on Creek, with the exception of 3, but that will be done while the contractor is mobilized with this phase on Choctaw. So every forward tee box will move forward, so that the option to play the yardage that you're currently playing will still be there, as well as another tee forward from that position.
Good.
There will be 5 tee options, yeah. There's going to be a forward tee from the current forward position on every hole. There'll be another tee box from the 4 you used to see out there. So the green tee markers will be on a tee box further up the fairway from where they currently sit. And all men are welcome to play
Don't
those
worry.
as well.
Any other questions in here? Kat, any other questions on live stream?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Well, without any further ado, thank y'all very much for coming and thank you all very much for tuning in. See y'all.